Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Good.
Awesome. So this week is going to be very excited because we are moving from genetics to natural selection. But last week you've been introduced to genetics, which is the study of inheritance of traits, and we talked about the structure of the genes, the chromosomes, and we are talking about sex chromosomes of males and females, and we completed the lab, including 2 problems associated with independent assortment. That is about traits that separate independently, and dihybrid crossing, when we used different traits and the colors and behavior. So we had exercise on the possible genotypes and phenotypes, and we put together Punnett square. So let's see what you remember from last week. I have a question for you. Who was the founder of genetics?
Gregor Mendel.
Gregor Mendel. That's correct. So also I encouraged you to keep records on the key terms, and this dictionary will help you to be prepared for the test, and I want you to memorize the description of these key terms. So who can tell me what the important terms and words you got from the last week? Yes, please.
Evolution, natural selection, adaptations, and fitness.
Very good. These are very important terms. And when we talk about evolution and natural selection, when species are selected naturally, we start talking about changes, right? From the chapter 7 that you read before coming to this class, you learned that when changes in the environment happened, so it caused the changes in evolution so that species are adapting to new conditions of life, right? So today I'll give you a short presentation, and before I start my presentation I want you to take a couple notes. First thing is that you are aware about our schedule, and your first midterm test is next week. Okay, so it'd be 40 questions, multiple choice, true false questions, and small essay. All right, so again, when you start preparing for the class, open your account in Canvas. That gives you the directions on what to read, what to emphasize on, what to concentrate, practice with exercises, and this will help you to be prepared for midterm test. Okay? Let's get started. Today we discuss chapter 7, and we'll talk about Darwin, evolution, and natural selection. Okay, let's get started. In this chapter, today we will talk about 7 sections of the chapter, including Darwin's influences, the history of the Darwin's study and research. We'll define natural selection. We'll talk about evolution and how evolution affects our daily life. as well as the evidence of the evolution, including fossil records, and how populations are the units, why populations are the units of natural selection. Let's start with the open question. How to explain the unity and diversity of living things? So I encourage you to make a list of at least three examples of how living things can differ, and another list of 3 traits or processes that all living things have in common. Okay? So basically, living organisms are different in, yes, size, okay, body shape, color, the way they move, what else? Yes, and food they eat. And you can continue this list, but why organisms are different? Organisms continually adapt to their environments, and the diversity of environments that exist promotes a diversity of organisms adapt to them. So what are the things in common? Yes, pretty much the same, like bodies set up the same way, they all eat, breathe, reproduce. But unity is explained by Darwin as all living things share the same fundamental characteristics because they are originated from a common ancestor. Okay. So, how about animals and plants? Animals depend on their surroundings to get what they need, including food, water, shelter, and a favorite temperature. Animals depend on plants or other animals for food. So Darwin actually, from his observations, came up with a concept saying animals can move around, but plants cannot. And they often depend on animals for pollination to move their seeds around. But animals, they have a lot of things in common, like body shape, like horses, they have heads, they have legs and body and tail, the same as monkeys. Well, let's talk about the history. In 1859, British naturalist Charles Darwin published his article on the origin of species by means of natural selection, where he introduced his concepts from observations about the natural selection. In this study, Darwin introduced basic concepts of evolution and natural selection. But however, Darwin was not the first one who suggested the idea of changes in the environment and in populations. Lamarck, for example, was one of the first to suggest that species can change over time. He didn't call it evolution, but he discussed the changes of populations over time. Another scientist, Lyell, suggested that an old Earth had gradually changed through slow accumulating processes. Well, in spite of the fact that Darwin didn't like formal schooling, he actually traveled a lot and spent time observing nature. From his travels, he collected data and information to compare species from different regions. So this is the map where he visited, starting Australia, South Africa, Europe, and he spent a lot of time in South America. So for about 5 years, Darwin surveyed the coast of South America and explored the continent, including Galapagos Islands that are west of South America. Well, at that moment, I would like to stop this presentation and close this session. That was an example of my lecture that usually I give to the students. So thank you very much, and you have a great day. Bye.